The Alliance for Driver Safety and Security, also known as the Trucking Alliance, is a nonpartisan coalition of freight, logistics, and supporting business partners. The Trucking Alliance vision is to advance safety reforms that can reduce and ultimately achieve zero large truck crash fatalities. With that in mind, Dave, would you care to introduce our next guest?
Well, you know what? You took the words right out of, sorry, Mike, through the, right out of my mouth. Lane Kidd is with us, and Lane is the managing director of the Trucking Alliance, and he also heads up the Arkansas Trucking Association, of course. But Lane, good morning. And you know what? I was just thinking, man, Lane was just on with us just a couple of days ago, and it was end of June. Man, I'm telling you, this is crazy. Good to have you back.
Time flies, Dave. And, Bridget's a hard person to follow. I don't have the voice she does.
Yeah, she's really something else, I'll tell you that. The Trucking Alliance, is at the forefront of pretty much every issue concerning truck safety, trucking safety, truck driver safety. Always kind of controversial, though, in terms of what you guys do. What is on the top of your simmering list right now, given some of the things that have just taken place with the proficiency thing in terms of language? Derek Barr coming in now, and that seems to be 101% approval rate here in the trucking industry. Where does the Alliance stand? I know where you guys stand on all of these issues, but what's at on the top of the list? Is there something really pressing for the Alliance at this moment?
Well, it's interesting. We've always advanced or hoped to advance some of these safety reforms, and we're successful with the ELD law back in the early 20s, and then hair testing was recognized in 2015. We're still trying to get it adopted internally so that these positive hair test results can go into the clearinghouse, which right now they can't. So we still have way too many drivers, thousands of drivers who are failing a hair drug test, and they go on somewhere else to get a job where a carrier doesn't utilize that method. So we still have some loopholes that I think everyone in the industry would like to see closed. I don't think I've never met anybody who thinks a truck driver using illegal drugs should be out there operating an 80,000-pound truck. So hair testing and improving the overall drug testing area in trucking, Dave. We spend a lot of time, your show spends a lot of time with what we call the over-the-road truck drivers, owner-operators, company drivers. We have about 2.9 million of those long-haul tractor-trailer type drivers out there. But most people don't realize we have about 10 million truck drivers who operate delivery trucks, panel trucks, straight trucks. These are commercial for hire drivers. They're delivering freight like the 80,000-pound rigs we're familiar with. But they don't have to get drug tested, and yet they are on the same highways. They pose the very same risks to motorists that, the truck drivers of larger vehicles do. So we'd like to see us, as an industry, start to look at maybe we need to have more drug-free truck drivers on the road who operate any kind of commercial vehicle. And that may not sit well with portions of the industry, but then again, picking illegal drugs and operating a for-hire truck is illegal. And the more we can make sure that they don't, I think the safer we'll be. Fentanyl is another big issue. We'd like to see it added, to the panel of drugs that are tested when a driver takes a drug test. Marijuana does not,
Well, let me ask you about fentanyl, because I get a chill when I hear the word. I think you do too. Pretty much, I hope everybody does. It is so insidious and so incredibly deathly. What's the holdup on getting that done? Is it just paperwork and politics? I mean, or is there pushback on that? I mean, real pushback, meaningful pushback?
I don't know about the pushback so much as the first two. I think it's politics to a degree, and the process of getting things approved through a federal bureaucracy, particularly at the Department of Health and Human Services. As an example, in the first Trump administration, they moved forward on hair testing. And in fact, in the last year of the Trump administration, they had actually proposed a final rule so that we could begin to put these test results into the clearinghouse. During the Biden administration, everything stopped. They did not move on it. They kept raising, HHS kept raising questions. Some of the old myths about hair testing that is somehow racially biased against Black Americans resurfaced, and we have, ample research to show that there's nothing about hair testing that is discriminatory against any particular race. And so fentanyl is the same thing. I think if you look at the emergency designation that the Trump administration has given for border security and some of the other activities, it's been the import of fentanyl, which is now the preferred drug. And the trucking alliance carriers do test for that. And, they do have the results, and we haven't necessarily released those. But fentanyl is a real problem and is showing up more and more in the truck driver population.
One of the things I wanted to ask you really quickly, Jimmy Mack here, is there a concern, like you said, with the inability to allow hair testing in, drivers are kind of slipping through a loophole and making their way to the other trucking companies. Is there a concern also as you talk about all these other forms of transportation delivery, more local routes and all that kind of stuff? Are you guys worried that the local routes are becoming a dumping ground for people who want to continue to use drugs and don't want to submit themselves to the testing? And that's why you guys are taking a long, hard look at expanding who actually is subject to the kind of testing that you guys want to happen? Is that what you're saying here? I want to make sure I heard you right.
Jimmy Mack, I would just say yes. You described the situation perfectly in your question. That is what's happening. And so you'll see a driver, for instance, who failed. 9 out of 10 drivers who failed a hair drug test passed the urine test. Now think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So almost all of them passed the urine test. So your habitual drug users are not dumb; they're not stupid, and they know how to get through the urine test undetected, but the hair test catches them. And so what happens is we're finding, because some of the trucking alliance carriers own divisions that don't have their name on, they have another name on the truck, but they're last mile delivery companies. And some of these drivers are showing back up at those last mile delivery companies because they don't necessarily think they have to pass a hair test. Now, these trucking alliance carriers do require that of those drivers, but most of the industry doesn't. And so that's what's happening. And we're seeing an uptick in crashes in those mid-level sized trucks, the ones that weigh less than 26,000 pounds. We're seeing a real uptick in the accidents in that sector. And unfortunately, the police do not do post-accident drug testing in all cases. And in fact, 2/3 of the large truck crashes that have a fatality or a reportable injury, 2/3 of those, we don't know if they ever took a post-accident drug test. Because
2/3,
the regulations,
wow.
The FMCSA allows the employer or the driver, if he owns his own truck, you have so many hours to go take a post-accident drug test. If you do not, if for whatever reason you don't, FMCSA allows you to simply put a note in the file stating that you were unable to go and get that post-accident drug test under the federal regs. That's not going to work. I mean, we know from the police reports that those truck drivers who do take a post-accident drug test, upwards of 14% test positive.
Which means more than 1 out of 10 is doing that. Lane, we're out of time. This is a conversation worth digging into. Don't be surprised if Claire Marie gets in touch with you at some point to have a longer conversation. Lane Kidd has joined us. Many of you know him from his past work over in Arkansas. He is the managing director of the Trucking Alliance. Lane, as always,